Hello and welcome to Groups 2 presentation on the social media strategy of Pepsi Max. We're going to be having a look at the soft drinks market, the branding and positioning, the various competitors of Pepsi Max. We're also going to have a brief look at the SWOT analysis that we've carried out on the Pepsi Max brand, the target market and how that relates to social media tools and their implementation. We also have conclusions from what we've looked at and what we've found, and a number of recommendations based on a number of analyses carried out. The soft drinks market is worth $820 billion. It's characterized by flat volumes and high sales. In emerging markets, there is a staggering potential for growth, but investment is needed on a long-term basis to make that possible. There is an increase in demand for choice amongst consumers. And if the 20th century was largely characterized by mass brands, and the 21st century is likely to be characterized by the individual. There is a move away from the carbonated drinks market. Sports drinks and energy drinks such as Red Bull and Gatorade are doing particularly well at the moment. In terms of competitive social media metrics, we've done a brief comparison of the first social media accounts that appear in Google search results for each of the brands. And Pepsi Max doesn't fare as well as Coke Zero, even though Pepsi Max has a larger market share than Coke Zero. Diet Coke does not do as well as Diet Pepsi, but you would expect that because Diet Coke has a greater market share. Coke Zero has enjoyed growth in terms of value and volume as a result of consumers switching from Diet Coke to Coke Zero. Pepsi Max does not identify any web presence on any of its products, neither cans nor bottles, which is quite surprising. And it also means that customers and consumers cannot verify which accounts they're expected to be following. They don't know what they're supposed to be interested in. They also can't verify that it's official, because people tend to look at the product to look for a website, a Facebook account, a Twitter account. There is a Made in GB, Made in Great Britain logo on the British product, which is quite interesting. There is a tendency for Pepsi Max to link itself to local in terms of national campaigning. Previous marketing campaigns have used celebrity endorsements, pop music, good sense of humour, and direct comparisons with Coca-Cola. They've used these in different proportions, but this combination lends itself well to social media and to content creation and buzz creation it's trying to sell. The target market for Pepsi Max is a younger audience. Diet Pepsi is seen as not something that they would be interested in. The whole diet concept is something that appeals more to 45s and overs, whereas Pepsi Max is very much targeted at a younger group. It's also targeted at generally a more male audience rather than female audience. But Pepsi has a number of challenges in terms of appealing to both genders at the same time, and also making the correct associations amongst the various product ranges. With regard to the SWOT analysis, we have carried out a SWOT analysis for Pepsi Max. We think their strengths are partnering with PepsiCo portfolio brands. They've already done that fairly well in terms of Doritos in the US and a number of other brands. As Pepsi Max is the second largest brand in terms of soft drinks in the world, therefore they have a very high profile. There is constant product innovation. There are also aggressive marketing strategies, and there are innovations within the specific marketing campaigns. And as already mentioned, their combination of celebrity endorsements and a few other factors mean that it's a brand that should lend itself very well to social media campaigning through buzz creation. And as a result of all that, it is quite uniquely placed, because this isn't an approach that other soft drinks companies take. In terms of weaknesses, if you don't like another brand in the portfolio, specifically a Pepsi brand, this could affect a purchasing decision. Pepsi and Pepsi Max have made strong, significant investments in social media platforms, and while the campaigns themselves have been very successful in terms of the number of consumers they've reached, there has been limited sales growth to support the investment. There are many opportunities with consumers looking for healthier options to full-fat sugary alternatives. There's growing popularity in the Asian markets, and there are lots of possibilities with regard to future collaboration. The health issue is going to be an ongoing threat. It's probably something that's not going to go away. The economic downturn still means that people are less likely to spend as much disposable income on soft drinks as maybe they once were. Coke Zero and Red Bull are both really tough competitors, and they're both very good at marketing. There's specific links to diabetes of all carbonated drinks, and again, this is something that isn't going to go away. Specifically with carbonated drinks, sales has been down by 3%. Sorry, pressed the wrong button. Pepsi Max has shifted its entire online presence to social media channels. It doesn't maintain a traditional website. It does have a web presence, which is an amalgamation of various content and posts from different social media channels. On first look, it does look really good. It looks very innovative, but when you dig further down, it's repetitive content. There's not really any sort of substantial information about the brand on the website. It's very much repeating information from social media channels. However, the target market fits with the demographic of particularly social media and Twitter. However, we have spotted some fairly significant obvious gaps. With regard to Twitter, the celebrity endorsement campaigns could easily be adapted for Twitter to engage people in conversations. This isn't happening at the moment. Twitter is very much being used as a broadcast medium, which we think is something that needs to improve. Pepsi Max has built up a large fan base on Facebook. The content's quite good. It applies itself well to the newsfeed on Facebook. However, there are so many pages that it's confusing to customers and consumers on where they should go to, what they should be looking at. So there needs to be a review and a reduction in number if Pepsi Max does not want to go down to a single Facebook page. With regard to Pinterest, there's a massive opportunity with regard to the female audience that dominate the platform, and if that could be combined with a partnership with a sports fashion brand, Adidas is the obvious choice that we came up with. We think this could be a really strong marketing campaign. This is an overview of the high-level metrics from a range of Facebook pages. If you take the American page and the UK page, the number of likes is fairly similar. But in terms of the UK, that is a much greater reach into the population. That's a direct result of the viral campaign that has recently been ongoing. It reached over 50% of the UK's active daily internet population, 18.7 million unique people. The viral metrics are quite staggering. It was an incredibly successful campaign. It's a campaign that Facebook use as an example of best practice, and it was very cost effective at 4p per view. Obviously it all mounts up, but in terms of a cost per view it was very good. The Canadian page is something very different. It has a completely different feel. It's very family orientated, and it's more about what you might do in your spare time rather than the sort of edgier focus that the American and British pages have. Twitter is a weakness for Pepsi Max. Their Twitter accounts are all over the place. They have several. They try to replicate what's happening on Facebook, but their metrics are nowhere near as good. The Pepsi Max account in Australia is very much sports focused. The Norwegian account has not been updated since January 2013. YouTube is okay. It's similar to Twitter in that there's some content, but it's not a separate channel in its own right. Pepsi Max should work really well on Instagram. Instagram is very much focused on imagery. Pepsi Max don't engage with the consumer base of Instagram in the same way that they do on other channels, which is a problem. That's something that needs to be worked on. So in terms of content generation, Pepsi Max is very good in generating content that appeals to its demographic. It appeals to both the demographic of Facebook, and it also appeals to broadly the demographic of Twitter, but there needs to be work on the conversational aspect of the way Twitter is used. However, because a lot of that content is replicated so heavily, there's no reason why someone would like Pepsi Max on Facebook, follow them on Twitter, and also look at other channels, because they get the same thing time and time again. In terms of the conversational aspect of the sites used, Pepsi Max are very good in comparison to other brands and companies of their scale at engaging with users of the various platforms. They've recently launched a campaign for people to create Vines, short videos, so that this can be part of the Live for Now campaign, which is a sub-campaign of the Unbelievable one that's going on. We've had a look at the goals grid for Pepsi Max to see what we would recommend they do. In terms of achieve, we think brand awareness in America is limited. We think Twitter needs work generally, but the number of followers is significantly less compared to Coke Zero. Instagram, we've already said how we think that needs to be reviewed. We think that there are opportunities for a collaborative platform, somewhere where people can share their ideas. We think that their sales need to be increased, and sales don't reflect the success of social media campaigns used. This is also linked to customer loyalty. We think that a single point of presence that can be added to labels would also benefit in reinforcing the link between the online presence and the actual brand. In terms of how they manage their social media accounts, Pepsi Max have to come up with a way so that central management can look after or delegate the responsibility of setting up social media accounts and then maintaining and updating them. Really, this responsibility needs to be spread out across a number of people, but that is a major problem in their management arrangements. We think that, as already said in the strength section, continuing to align campaigns across the portfolio is an advantage and something they should continue to do. We think that the Pepsi Pulse engagement channel should be used to drive consumers to social media networks. Social media would work very well, possibly better in terms of driving sales, if it was matched with more traditional forms of media. There are a larger number of posters being used at the moment, but there are not as many television adverts. We think that could help. There could be synergies in using the two types of media simultaneously. In terms of eliminating, we think that obviously there isn't the correct management arrangements, but if there's any organisational bureaucracy that affects the growth of the brand, that stops these different aspects linking up and becoming a single coherent campaign, they need to be eradicated. We don't have any firm evidence to say that's the case, but the implications of the evidence that we've seen that things are happening in silos suggests that that could be a problem. We think that Pepsi Max having no sugar should be disconnected from the link with soft drinks to diabetes. We think that the target for the sales increasing for Coke Zero in 2013 is a real worry, and that Pepsi Max need to take that on directly through some of the methods that we've used. There are also opportunities for For Pepsi Max to be branded as a more healthy option, given the fact that it has no sugar, I think it's too closely associated with other carbonated drinks. There have been a huge amount of hashtags in relation to Pepsi Max. There hasn't been a concerted campaign on social media, but you always have to be aware that that could happen. In terms of what to avoid, we do think that a continued link to Diet Pepsi and the lack of brand differentiation across the portfolio is something that needs to be eradicated. The continuing link to Diet Pepsi is something that will not always be an advantage. That needs to be looked at very closely, because as the continuing emphasis on health gains ground, it's not going to go away. Pepsi Max could outshine Diet Pepsi, and it doesn't want to be anchored down by a brand that couldn't be as successful as a result. We've had a look at the social marketing compass, and we think that the two main values that Pepsi needs are honesty and integrity. We think that looking at the two roadmaps, that Pepsi Max follows those roadmaps. Whether or not that's intentional, we're not sure, but they do follow those roadmaps fairly well. We've just outlined here how. We've also suggested an alternative route at the bottom, incorporating the television campaign that Pepsi Max could make more use of to support the social media campaign. We also think that the website should be specifically for Pepsi Max rather than all of the Pepsi brands, again, to provide a differentiation. We've provided a suggestion for an unbelievable theme where people could provide videos of around 20 seconds which could be used as official TV adverts. That then links the social side of things from the crowdsourcing into the more traditional aspect of television. We think that Pepsi Max needs to set some specific targets with regard to key performance indicators. We've outlined here specifically what we'd like to see. Growth by 20% in terms of engagement, improvement by 20% conversions of over 1,000 sign-ups for competitions. These do need to be specifically related to campaigns, but again, we think that this is something that can be and should be achieved. We think that there needs to be software that tracks engagement and comments, as well as the results of. It also needs to track the results of any redirects. Specific benchmarks need to be over a range of different periods. So weekly performance, monthly performance, and then post-campaign analysis. Apologies for the typo. In terms of recommendations, we think, in addition to what's already been discussed, that content variety needs to be key. That's really important in generating engagement on each of the various channels. If a site's used to target a particular country, this should be clear because it's not at the moment. We've also made a number of recommendations in terms of how that content should be provided. This is linked to management arrangements. Overall, Pepsi Max uses social media incredibly well. The key aspect is to turn a successful marketing campaign into higher sales. Social media used in place of a website means there is a lack of depth of information about the brand and products available, and a lack of differentiation on each individual brand. Repetitive content bores brand advocates. There is a lack of clarity over which social media account is to be engaged with. The website interface is very innovative and complements their approach to social media, which in general complements the entire brand.
Let's skip to the good bit.
unbelievable.